First site was at AUSL, Academy for Urban School Leadership, and basically what AUSL does when a school is considered failing, they go in and take over, fire everybody, and change it. So it was an art therapy pilot program, knowledge and skills from community psych that I learned. I listened to the needs and the problem. Basically, the problem was there were a lot of traumatized students, and they wanted an art therapy program to come in and help that. I collaborated with team to design an arts therapy program to address trauma in the schools. And then I connected AUSL to the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. The interns there would be the therapists for the program. And I wrote a proposal to present to funders. So what went well? The team was focused on the solution, and we used our time wisely. And we made valuable connections. Challenges? After the proposal was written and I handed it over, and they presented it to the private funder, I never heard from them again. So the art therapy pilot program, what would you do differently? I would make sure, I never got them to actually sign the MOA and the paperwork. And so I did the work before I even started the contract. So my second place was Sky Art. This is what it looked like before. It's on 91st and Brandon, south side of Chicago. Art Center, they provide art programs for students and teens. And what I learned with working with them, basically I was there to, she was saying her problems were the culture and climate of the area, and she had no curriculum. So I observed the culture and climate, I listened to the problem, I assembled a team, and I created a curriculum for their arts / therapeutic program, and provided workshops to teach the lesson planning to their art teachers. And I worked with the director to tell the story of the organization and to the new employees. So one of the challenges was time. It was really hard to try to figure out how to do my day job and also go to this site, which had a lot of the same hours as my job. What would I do differently? I would work with the center over the summer when I wasn't working my full-time job, which is teaching. So I'm off during the summer. And really, I would be honest about the true problem. I wasn't particularly honest with the director. I think her true problem was the person that she hired to hire the art professionals and kind of direct the program. I kind of skirted around that issue because I know she has a very close relationship with this lady. So advice, find an organization with different hours than your day job.
I'm so happy to see all of you though. I know it's like my presentations, but I miss all of you. Even Karen in Florida, I got to see her last week. That was kind of awesome. And congratulations to everybody who's presented, you know, and has passed, like Karen. So the consultation project for me was it was pretty cool. It was like a coming home again. A lot of you know I took a new job this semester, so it was really exciting, and the stars kind of aligned for this kind of project. So I did my project at an alternative school in Pilsen, borderline little village. The mural, I picked the mural specifically. The organization's been around for like over 40 years. And this mural was in a basement at one point in time, and it was created by some ESL students. So the organization historically started as an ESL adult institution, and now does secondary education. So I specifically focused on the alternative school, and it's called Real Leadership Academy. So a real quick overview. So I know the font's weird, so next week what I'll do is I'll print it out for folks as well, so you can kind of just read it at the leisure. But overall, its intention is for 17 to 21-year-olds who have been either pushed out or stopped out of a traditional secondary education. And it has sort of a social justice mission. And if you remember from the last class, I presented on Ruy Lozano Sr. And his assassination. So it's kind of really cool that I got a chance to do this, and it's in the neighborhood where he was assassinated. And the idea of alternative youth has always been a strong passion of mine. Part of it, so the consultation was a little bit personal as well as professional. Just sort of understanding the modes of education and access to education. So this school specifically has a social justice mission, and my intentionality to help them, for anyone who works with grassroots organizations or under-resourced schools, marketing and development is not one of their budget line items, right? Paying teachers is kind of like, you know, their ultimate goal. So I thought I could be helpful to draft a social marketing strategy for them, to help them with recruitment and help them with just sort of kind of grow into the 21st century, right? Like social media, you know, just sort of more sort of quality style recruitment, and using technology for them. So the idea of the project was to create a social marketing strategy for the school to help their recruitment efforts, provide some raw forms. And what I mean by raw forms is I don't want to do the flyers for them, but I can provide them conceptualizations of what it should look like. And then hopefully the organization can sustain that through their marketing department and kind of just go from there. And develop and present some of the, I did some one-on-one check-ins with faculty, students. So it was sort of a very inclusive process to kind of hear out what folks imagined or visualized when they thought about their school. What went well, understanding the demographics of the community, just knowing the background, knowing the institution, the community, just really doing the homework around that helped me tremendously, right? Just being equipped to not come in from a sort of a raw form like teach me, but I already came with something to the consulting project to bring to the table and then learn their day-to-day sort of dichotomy as an institution. I have experience in marketing development, so that helped. That went well, it went smooth. So we weren't kind of sitting around the table, does anyone know how to do this? You know, do you know somebody who knows how to do this? So I already came with that to the table, and it went well because we didn't spend any time sort of trying to build it from an unknown source. We built it from actual sources that knew what they were doing. I kept a consistent, regular schedule of meetings. That went well. That's part of my advice as well at the end. I was just consistent, and I was consistently coming around. I'll talk about the challenges, but it also went well. I guess my ability to work through transition, a lot of changes happened, sort of similar to Rochelle's. And then having genuine relationships with the folks responsible for the institution, as well as the people executing the plans. So I needed to develop relationships with both, and I was able to do that. The challenges, it was very dramatic. Dr. Legler knows this because I checked in with him midway. They went through an org leadership. So those of you who know Juan Salgado, he's now the chancellor of community colleges. So that was big. So when you lose an executive director for the last 16 years, the trickle down effect kind of impacts a lot of people, especially right now with the state of the state with budget crisis, as well as the deficits in education. There was union negotiations happening while I was trying to do the consulting project. So literally like the students staged a walkout. So there was like a dichotomy internally happening around unions, loss of leadership. And that was really interesting because it impacted people. Like I'd show up with an idea and they would cancel on me the day of. Or like I had a great idea to present to the principal, but her students just walked out of the building and she's kind of trying to deal with that today. So that was really interesting. The person, my original contact, quit. So he decided it was better to be an Uber driver than work for the institution. So I was kind of in limbo for a couple of weeks, and Dr. Legler was like, find a new site. But we stuck through it, and Dr. Legler kind of walked me through how to kind of bridge that. And then the harder part for me was shutting my mouth and stepping aside. I think that was probably the biggest challenge because I'm very passionate about what I do. So as a consultant, I had to keep reminding myself, you don't work for them. You can't tell them what to do. You just kind of walk with them. What would I do differently? Definitely, I would not allow the project to shift with the changes. So we started with an idea, and then when she lost her staff member, we redrafted the idea, and that kind of sucked because midway through the consulting project, the principal wanted something different than my original point of contact. So going back in time, I would have just stuck to the original idea and not kind of evolved to what the principal now wanted. Considerable, more stable organization. I should have probably just understood that up front. I did know going into the project that they were going through they're on probation through the Department of Education, so they might lose their accreditation. So I knew that going in, so I thought I could be helpful if I could help with enrollments, right? And that would help some of their deficits. But I probably should have just chosen a more stable organization. And then offered less time. I don't know if you guys face the same problems, how to balance your life as well as a consulting project, and they get too excited about your talent, so they want to use you more. So I kept getting phone calls and what would you do throughout this whole project, and now looking back, I probably wouldn't have answered so many phone calls because the consulting project was starting to kind of sway a little bit. My advice, prepare for the overlap of your project. I think the ones that come behind us, I think we all learned that, you know, you start really solidifying it during Dr. Viola's class, and as you go into the actual consultation, your MOU should be ready and your MOU should be signed, right? Some of us kind of just started when the course started, so that overlap, I think I would have done it different just to be ready since last semester. Pre-identify the organization, so you're not fumbling at the start of the project. Be clear with the organization, with your limitations and strengths. So I feel like I had a lot to offer them, and they got that up front. So it was harder drawing a boundary towards the end about, okay, you're asking for too much already, you need to stop. So even though we're confident and passionate what we do, maybe just stick to the script at some points, and allow the institution to understand you're a consultant, and just because you're good at other things doesn't mean you get to kind of sway in that route. Get your MOU signed ASAP. That's something I did wrong. What I also want to share, if you allow me, how am I doing with time?
You're at 8 minutes, 15 seconds.
Okay, I'm about to close out. I want to show you guys.
That there for a second, though. If you want to open up something else, it's fine. But I want you to pull it up in a second.
Sure, no problem. Do you guys mind if I show you a little bit of some of the marketing materials I created for them?
You got a minute and a half.
All right. So this is really quick. I'm showing you some of the old marketing materials. This is what they would use to recruit people. Like, this is literally their flyer. Those are my markings. Please ignore those. So those are my markings. This is what they would use to recruit people, just to kind of give you an idea of what I was up against. So this was kind of like their stalemate postcards and flyers. So what I was able to do in terms of offering them some solutions, and it's all in the marketing plan of how to use their resources internally and identify student resources. This was a bifold I created for them. Here's another flyer that I'm gonna leave for them that's editable. They can't eat it, but they could edit it and modify it to whatever it is that they need to do in terms of their programming. And then the last thing I'm gonna leave them with, besides the marketing plan, come on, open up, is an actual postcard that identifies some of their strengths and some of their imagery, so they can start handing out to potential future students in the future. So those are just some examples.
Good to see you all again. I do my field work.
You might also, I didn't say this either, but you might want to introduce yourself because not everybody knows who you are.
Okay. Take
Sorry.
two.
Yep.
It's okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Dolores Mays. I'm a doctoral student in the Community Psychology program at National University. I'd like to share with you my fieldwork presentation that I did with A.S. McKinley's Community Services Incorporation Emergency Foster Care Program. Okay. They're located, A.S. McKinley's Emergency Foster Care Program is located on the south side of Chicago. One of the things that they do is that they provide family-like foster care to children who are entering the state of Illinois' foster care system. They're a purchase of service agency. They are contracted with the Department of Children and Family Services to provide emergency services. The reason why this is so important for me is because when children come into emergency shelters, they often languish in the shelter care system, and it's very difficult to find placement for those children. So one of the things I did for my presentation was to do a little public service announcement. If you will open your heart and become a foster parent at some point in your life, or if you know someone who would like to do that, that would be a wonderful thing. Emergency shelter care goals with EFCP initially was to keep sibling groups together. one of the things that the consent decree requires with the state is that when sibling groups come into care, that they do everything they possibly can not to separate those children. And they were also finding through their research with programs like that, that those children seem to have a shorter length of stay in the foster care setting. Unlike traditional emergency shelters whose children languish in foster care. So EFCP emergency care goals changed because they then agreed to partner with the Department of Children and Family Services to use the emergency foster care model to provide services to all children entering the system, not just sibling groups. And in order for the department, which we're calling DCFS, and EFCP to determine whether or not that goal was successful or that partnership was successful, they need to have some type of evaluation about the number of days that the children had been lingering in care or not been in care, so that they can know if this pilot program is working. And the reason why, again, that this is significant is because of the BH consent decree versus Sheldon litigation with American Civil Liberty Union. They sued because this particular person had languished in foster care, emergency shelters. How I used my knowledge and skills gained in the community psychology program to inform the project. Well, I thought it was very interesting because when we initially started the project in the contract agreement, I had all these wonderful ideas, and I had met with the program manager, and we had discussed what type of product service delivery that as a consultant I would be delivering. One of the things that I learned when you're working within an organization and in a foster care system, things often change from day to day. And so ideally, my intent was to go in to do a 25-item survey tools and to interview the staff and find out what type of trainings that they thought that they might need with working with diverse populations, which are different from the sibling groups that they were trained to work with. One of the things that you should know about this organization is set up like a foster home. It's not set up like your traditional emergency shelter. So EFCP is kind of like this big building that has 6 different apartments in it. And then they hired 6 foster parents to live in the program 24 hours a day. Because of the trauma issues, the detachment issues, and a lot of the behavior issues with children coming into care, they had a high rate of children running away from emergency shelters when they came into care. But they were finding that models like EFCP, that the children were staying, again, longer. So when I went into the program, that was kind of a shock to see the system. And then the staff are located in the basement of the facility, and they're called support staff. So if there's a crisis that goes on in the facility, then the staff immediately goes up to assist the foster parent. So I said that because when I wanted to interview the staff, it wasn't your traditional, you go to an agency, you have 12 staff who punch in, punch out, you can give them surveys. So we'll come back to that. But research, data analysis, and verbal consultation is what I use to try to assist with the program as we continue to work together. What went well was the communication with the management team. I found myself having developed a strong relationship with the program manager, the assistant program manager, and the receptionist, because all other staff other than the staff who you would see at their every other Wednesday staff meeting was not present. The social workers who, I should tell you this, the foster parents, they provide emotional, social support to the children who come to the program. They take care of their daily needs, but they don't do any case management work. That part of the process is contracted out to the Department of Children's Services, to Threshold, to Lutheran Services, and other agencies. So they're practically like parents to these children who come into their foster care system. So my communication then with them would be limited because they're always working in crisis mode. So any administrative tasks as it related to my consultant responsibility, I was 9 times out of 10 directed to the program manager. But one of the things that I found interesting in the data collection part, when during the staff meeting, when we talked about this 25-item survey that I wanted to use to help determine what type of training needs that they may need as a result of working with the different populations, the staff immediately said, no, we don't think that we should do a 25-item survey because all of our training are designed through the Department of Children and Family Services of the state. We have this virtual training center that we go to, and there's training that's already pre-designed for us to take. So as a consultant, I'm thinking, okay, well, I got this contract and I need to do the survey. So I'm trying to push the survey. And they're like, no. So the program manager said, you know, we are always, some people do not listen to their staff. She said, but I listen to my staff. And there's another way that we can collect this data. So we will work together to collect the data, and we'll still, I believe, get our needs met. So I respected that as related to the 25 items of survey. So as the process continued, I then asked, well, what other kind of program data do you have available that I could use in order to make recommendations? She said, well, what were you thinking about? I said, well, in my community psychology program, we did a quantitative data analysis where we collected data. So things like the children's age, demographics, what placements that they're going to be going to, and all those different kind of things may be instrumental in helping us to decide what type of training the staff might need. And okay, and access to program data was fine. Okay, what were the challenges? Site visits, again, were the challenges, and I just talked about that. Team meetings was a challenge, again, because they were every other Wednesday. And so I found myself a lot as it related to collecting data or participating in those meetings, which was really great because she came up like with a conference call line, and we could also transfer data back and forth via the internet. So again, the staff, another thing too, as far as working directly with the staff or finding out directly from them what their program needs were difficult because they were always working with the children. What would you do differently if you had to do it open? I would be open to listen to what the program identifies as their program needs. I would ensure that I have the skills to produce required product services. Advice for the next group of the students and other lessons learned. I would choose a fieldwork site that is related to your thesis and dissertation work. I would choose a fieldwork site that is related to your desired career and personal objectives. Advice for the next group of students and other lessons learned. I would be open to the programmatic changes that may occur during the fieldwork process and have a plan B. I would communicate often and keep all the lines of communication open with my fieldwork sites so that they know that you're committed to their agency and your fieldwork contract with NLU. Data analysis. I did collect some data from the information that I got from them. One of the things that I learned, the length of stay exceeded 30 days was geared more towards a special population of people. Pregnant and parenting team, they stayed for a maximum of 108 days. This child was having a difficult time because she was going into a transitional living program and she refused to go to school. Males over the age of 10 was staying 44 days due to behavior problems. Females over the age of 13 was staying more than 35 days because of behavior problems. They had a difficult time placing them. And then males stayed 30 days. We had one male to stay 30 days pending the Indian Child Welfare Act because once he came into the system, he was identified as an Indian child. So they had to give the casework responsibility over to that tribe of folks to find a placement. So he's there, but they know where he's going. They just haven't moved him yet because of the process. When I collected all of the data, this is the last two slides. When I collected all of the data, one of my recommendations to staff was they need to develop an educational liaison. The parenting and pregnant team was refusing to go to school because she wanted to run away with her boyfriend and that kind of thing. So she was missing a lot of her education while they were taking her to school. So one of my recommendations to them, what they might want to do is incorporate an education liaison to the program for pregnant and parenting teams. That way they can get the education from the Chicago Public School staff, and they can have that support there within the program for a special population as related to education. Vicarious trauma, I had a list that I got off of DCFS website of the trainings that they're currently taking, But vicarious trauma is something that the foster parents was experiencing a lot of that they were not getting training for. So vicarious trauma and quarterly de-escalation training because of all of the problems that they were having with youth in a particular age group. They get de-escalation training, but it's only once a year. So my recommendation is that they increase that now, especially since this is a pilot program, and then maybe they can graduate it later and staff continue to get a better grasp on working with the children. Okay, questions, comments, or feedback? That's it.
Everybody, my name's Eileen Johnson, and I am a doctoral student at NLU. And I did a fieldwork project with CYP, which is Chicago Youth Programs, and my project was helping them become accredited for after-school programs for the state of Illinois. Okay, we're ready to go to the next slide.
So you're going to click the slides with the clicker there, but when we get to where you're ready to run the video, just let me know.
Great, right there.
Okay.
So I don't have, it's not a video, but it's their website. And so instead of me explaining who they are, sometimes this visual is really helpful. CYP started in 1984 as a grassroots organization started by Northwestern medical students to help underserved populations in the city of Chicago in 4 areas. And hopefully this will work. Oh yeah, here it comes. Thank you. Almost. So this is Chicago Youth Programs. It's one of the best after-school programs in the United States. And it continues to keep growing, serving Chicago's underserved youth and their families. So the goal for me was to help them become accredited. Act Now is a organization that accredits like Boys and Girls Clubs after school programs, other places as well. And it's really, I'm just losing what I'm doing, I'm so sorry. Can we pause?
Accreditation.
Yeah, can we just pause a second? Okay, so I don't know what's happening, but I'm getting a brain freeze.
Well, why don't we go back to your presentation?
Yeah.
If I can get the cursor. Do what I want, which it really doesn't like to do.
Great. Okay, so accreditation is really important for these types of programs. It shows that they have quality standards for children, for families, and for their staff and leadership. So,
Hang on.
okay.
There you go.
Thanks. So this project for me was all about community psychology and its 7 core principles. So individual and family wellness, we're helping kids and families feel good. So that's their physical well-being, which includes nutrition, their safety, their emotional and mental well-being. There's tutoring programs that Loyola and Northwestern students tutor children. We also have social workers on site that engage families, helping them be better parents. A lot of times some of those underserved communities, parents are missing, they're not in the family, they aren't pro-education, they might be working a lot of jobs, and so they don't have the time to spend with their kids. Sense of community, CYP is in their communities. They have been for over 30 years. They're invested in the communities, and the families and kids know that they're going to stay in the community. Respect for human diversity. CYP takes their pride on dealing with all kids from these underserved communities as well as their family members. And sometimes that's a little tough. Some family members could be addicted to drugs. They could be missing in the picture of the kids. But they really strive to respect everybody who's involved in the child's life. Social justice, CYP is involved with ensuring that these kids get what they need, no matter what their economic state is at the moment. Empowerment and citizen participation. It empowers the people, the families, to tell us what they want for their kids and how we can go about making the after-school programs better. Collaboration and community strengths. We partner with schools, Chicago Boy and Girls Clubs. We partner with hospitals as well as Lurie Children's to get the kids what they need. So that's free inoculations. We partner with restaurants and other places to get the kids free meals if they need it. And everything's based in research. So from the start, everything went really well. Collaboration and mutual respect. We both partnered very well, listening and working towards common goals, which was to become accredited. So what I did for the program was I set goals. So the first thing I did is I wanted us to set goals. So my first goal was to guide, support, and coach CYP to use these quality standards as a precursor to becoming fully accredited. The research showed that the quality after-school programs increase positive outcomes for kids, and those positive outcomes are numerous. We're not just talking about education, we're talking about their physical well-being because of nutrition or lack thereof. They're going to get their health taken care of. They're going to strengthen their relationships with their parents. The next goal was why. You know, why are we doing this? And it's all about the kids and the families in those underserved neighborhoods. And I wanted their leadership to understand, you know, why this was important to get accredited. So here's just a couple things that I completed. Relationship building was really important to me. You can't go into a huge organization like CYP and feel that you're going to automatically build relationships. And so I spent a lot of time with all these folks, a lot of face-to-face meetings. I would drop in, emails, phone calls. It went very well. I suggested a needs assessment and a survey tool. We developed that, combined it with the survey tool for each area to complete. So each leader in every place that CYP has programs. Then we gathered the data, and it's used to develop a strategic plan and drive action. I set up conference calls with the executive deputy director and the network lead of Act Now. We discussed a plan to see what CYP needed to do to move forward to complete the goal. Becoming a member and to be listed on the website that would demonstrate that CYP has obtained the Act Now quality standards. And Act Now is the state of Illinois' quality standards, best practice, or benchmark. 4, I had a conference call with all the board members, updated the board members on how I'm doing, what is the state of Illinois voluntary quality standards program, and I gave them a progress report every week. I checked in with the board every single week and gave them a progress report. I attended the leadership retreat. So there was a numerous amounts of leaders, I think there's 10 or 12 of them that work, and they never had training on leadership, and they're dealing with families and kids. So I attended that, showing I'm invested here to coach, guide, and support all their efforts, as well as explain the needs assessment form, why we were doing it, how it was going to work, and that I needed their honest feedback in order for this to work. So for example, one of the honest input was some of the staff comes to work high. Some of them drink. Some of them come to work high, you know, they have long 12, and that's all confidential, but they have 1,400 days, and they're dealing with some really big problems with youth and families, and how are we going to address that? How are they going to address that? So it was really nice that after building those relationships, that those leaders felt comfortable telling me such intimate things on paper and documenting that information. I gave that needs assessment tool back to Sanea when it was completed. It was honest, just like an example that we talked about. And we documented everything, and now we're setting a strategic plan into place so that they can become accredited. We took data from that information and we developed the spreadsheet. I attended the gala and the fundraiser, and I asked permission to stay on voluntarily to guide, support, and coach them to complete their goal. I did not have any challenges. I would not do anything different. And my advice would be pick an organization or a project that you're passionate about, that you want to work at and make a difference. That was it.
I'm Tanya Roberson, and I'm a doctoral program I'm a doctoral student here at National Louis University. And my presentation is entitled today, Impacting Health Inequities, the creation of data collection tools to assess the holistic health of African American students at HBCU. And I like to start with a little background of my presentation and why I actually chose this project, because I wanted to use something that will actually be impactful and that people can use. My learning objective is actually based on my research interest, which is developing health education initiatives and disease prevention initiatives to impact health disparities. There's all type of inequities that exist among races, and it goes back dated for several years, for many decades actually. 50 years ago, Dr. Martin Luther King even mentioned in a presentation that he had given to the Medical Committee for Human Rights how shocking and inhumane the inequalities that exist are. But he also mentioned to don't just dwell on what those inequalities are or where they came from or what did they do to, but as future advocates, community psychologists, to meet people where they are, to help them cope and actually help with those issues. This problem of the statement, this statement of the problem, and I highlighted in red that African Americans die each year from diseases and ailments that could have been prevented, is one of the main reasons why I selected this project. I selected my project to be at an HBCU, which is a historically Black college and university. And I chose a HBCU because I felt that this was the best place to meet people where they are, and the people I'm speaking of are young African Americans, so that I can have education provided to them and impact them with health education to prevent them from having a lot of ailments later on in life. An overview of my organization. It's a United Methodist Church affiliated organization. It's one of the largest non-for-profit urban research co-educational residential institution in Atlanta, Georgia. It's been around for a long time. It's been in existence since 1988, and it was actually a consolidation of two other universities, Clark College and Clark Atlanta University. It's a member of the Negro College Fund, and has a very active research department, and it has many clusters. The main one that I worked with was the Interdisciplinary Behavior Science and Health Disparity Cluster, which was BSC. And this cluster actually served as my liaison to the faculty, to the staff. They led me to lead like Greek organization leaders, Greek members, to college leaders and things of that nature that I need to speak with. I actually had to have a mentor, because in order to do any type of research on the campus of Clark Atlanta University, you have to have a mentor. So they were the ones that allowed me to meet with certain faculty members that were actually doing research, and I found one that was actually doing work in health disparities, and so that's who I'm working with. And this cluster supports basic research on individual behavior, social organization, theories, and values. And it's always open to do research at Clark Atlanta University and elsewhere, just wherever it's possible to reduce health disparities. Clark Atlanta University, like I said, is an HBCU. 80% of the students are African Americans. They're a great place because literature also shows that there's very little data on health as far as African American students are concerned. Further research that is culturally tailored, because they do have a college assessment, health assessment that does exist, but it's not culturally tailored for African American students. And then there's no health promotion. Even though they have some data collected, they have no prevention activities or interventions developed from there. And for these reasons too, this is the population of our future. The more that these African American students can learn about their health and try to improve their health, they can go out to their communities and build other activities that be like peer-to-peer educators for their communities. So I had 4 project deliverables. The first one was a culturally tailored, holistic, self-administered college assessment that I developed and I created on the Qualtrics software. The way it was created is a 50-question survey. It has 9 different domains, and I have them listed here, and I have about 3 to 4 questions in each of these domains. I have it accessible where you can do it self-administer. It's on paper, online. They can do it complete on a cell phone or on the computer. And all of the questions are under different themes. They have top priorities, and they're scaled, and they're open and closed questions. And all of this information is going to be used for the future for the school to create data and then develop sustainable health interventions and activities. I also created a focus group protocol, and the focus groups are going to be for fraternity members, because at the HBCU, that's another part of their culture, that fraternities and sororities are highly looked upon, and then they have certain thrusts of health that they have to deliver each year, and so they will keep that going. And then the focus groups are built for 5 to 7 participants, and there's 60 minutes apiece. The third project deliverable was recruitment strategies. I formed relationships. We called American Heart Association. We had a relationship. We built a relationship with Walmart because that was the closest store to the campus. It was in walking distance for all the students, and they have healthy fruits and vegetables and things of that nature. And they donated gift cards and different things like that to give to the students who actually participate in these surveys. And lastly, I developed a recruitment flyer. And this is the recruitment flyer that I developed. Honor Black History 365, 24/7. So how did the community psychology program inform my project? Like I mentioned earlier, I wanted it to be a project that could be utilized and actually impact society and make a difference. I wanted to meet people where they are to help them cope. The health belief model and tenets of the ecological system provided the framework of the surveys and the tools that I developed. Cultural competence was a piece that was used there. Community research methods and statistics. Collaborative work in the communities, organizational and community development and consultation, and prevention and intervention and evaluation. So what went well? The partnership building went well. The students were very interested. The Greek leaders were interested. And then by them doing work already in this area, but never, as far as health disparities, but never in this area, it actually jump-started other Clark activities. And some of the challenges was understanding the organizational structure, because I might start talking to one person, and after I talk to them for about a month or so, they tell me I need to talk to someone else. Communication deficits, the timing, because at the time I was working on, actually it was midterms and then students getting ready to graduate, and you actually need someone there that can help you. And I thought I had someone there, which was my daughter, but she was so busy graduating, I needed to be there myself. So it's kind of expensive with me flying back and forth. And so recovering from unrealistic deadlines. So if I had to do it again, what would I do different? Start thinking today, which was a long time ago, like about a year ago, and then researching the organization very well and getting in there and getting to know who the structures and different things of that nature, not to bite your tongue, but stand firm on what you say, determine a communication flow, like write down who you need to talk to, ask a lot of questions, never give them a copy of your resume, and then send a thank you card. Okay. Thank you.
Everybody, my name is Rafael Medeiros, and I will be presenting on Albany Park Community Center. Just a little intro about Albany Park. It's located in the community of Albany Park on the north side of Chicago. I've known about them for quite a long time. A few friends of of mine worked for them. My mom worked for one of their other sites that was related to Albany Park. And so I've always knew about them, but from the outside in, right? I met with the staff, and that was a great experience. I met with the executive director and the director of the counseling program. His name was Rodney Walker, and Kathy Mayer was the director of the counseling department. And learning through the literature of what they requested, one of the things that they requested was to work with the counseling program, add programs to the counseling program. So working with veterans as well as after school program. These are the key questions that I'll be answering tonight. How did I use the knowledge and the skills that I learned in the program here at National Louis? What went well with the project? What were the challenges that I faced when I was doing the consultation? Some things that I would do differently with the consultation, and some things that I could share with all of you about what I could have done better, and some advice that I could give to you. So first question, what knowledges, skills that I used here, that I learned here at National Louis in the community psych program that I was able to use in this consultation project? It gave me a new and different perspective on community. So just working with the community or living in a community, actually being in an organization and seeing how they function was a different, was something that I took away, that I gained. The importance of evaluating and consulting for an organization, trying to see the blind spots is great to do a consultation and evaluation. A holistic approach to psychology. Most of the times, every time we mention a psychology, it's the behavior, the mental health, the social. And applying community psych to this project, it brings in the wellness of the community, the ecological part of the community as well, and linking science to the practice. So everything that I've learned here, or we've learned here at the program, we could link it to practice. We could bring it to the community, the sense of community, the empirical research component that we learned here. What went well? So I was able to establish a good relationship and a good rapport with the executive director, with the staff, and that was key. I was able to learn, and there was a lot of interaction between us. Learned a little bit more of the history of the organization. I was able to identify the needs of the organization for the counseling program, and that came through dialogue with the executive director, with the staff of the counseling program. And what they wanted was to create a literature review about the veterans program, the after-school program, for the counseling program, and the funding resource list. So they wanted, and I'll get more into that in a bit. What were the challenges? So the organization changed the plan when I started. I started the plan thinking that I would do an evaluation of the organization entirely. But the executive director wanted just to do a consultation project just on the counseling program. And so that reduced the project significantly. It limited the scope of the consultation. And so he just wanted me to work with the counseling program and try to find literature on how they could add a veterans program, how to help the veterans in the community, as well as the children that were already in the program, in their preschool and their kindergarten program, for an after school. So the counseling program works with high schools and elementary schools. So they wanted to add the after school component to the program. Expectation of the deliverables, their expectation was to do this literature review and try to implement these programs, as well as the funding resource list. So the funding resource list was something additional. So there are three things: literature review on veteran programs and counseling programs, after school program, and a funding list for they could get funding for those programs or for the organization as a whole. And their expectation was to go look at companies like Groupon and Google and places where they can maybe get funds from them, from private companies. And one of the challenges was employee turnover. So through the project, I was able, one of the employees in the consultation in the counseling program left. And that was a key contact for me because she was the assistant to the director of the counseling program. So when I met in January, she had, director told me, no, she's no longer with us. We'll be meeting one-on-one from here on out. And then the executive director ended up just leaving just not too long ago. So there's a turnover at the senior staff level as well. What would I do differently if I could do it all over again? Visit the sites of the counseling programs to get a feel of the culture of the staff and how they're counseling. And day service high schools, elementary schools, although this was more for a veteran program and an after school, knowing what their needs were at the schools would have gave me a little more insight of what population that I could focus on. An issue in a questionnaire and a survey to the staff to see what they would want to add to the counseling program. Not so much of what the executive director wanted for the company or for the organization, but what the staff thinks that would complement well the counseling program. And meet with the senior staff twice a month instead of once a month. I was meeting with them once a month ever since we started this field work. And so having a meeting twice a month would have helped me to shift with the changes in staff and to meet at the counseling programs at the sites that they service. Would have gave me a little more flexibility and maybe a little more idea of the culture of the organization. And so advice to the next group. One of the things that I came up as a challenge was trying to stay ahead of the project. So trying to meet their needs with the literature review, trying to find funding sources. And that was a challenge because working full-time, they were actually wanting me to do this full-time for them as well. So when I was leaving the organization, one time when I was meeting with the executive director, they made comparison that, oh, now we have a consultant, like many organizations have, University of Chicago that does consulting for many non-for-profits. Now we have Nationalist that's helping us. I'm like, okay, well, this is just a project. It's only for the short term. It's not long term. So they were taking away. That's a takeaway that they were doing. That they tried to communicate to me. Take an incremental approach with the project. I was trying to tackle on the literature review all at one time instead of trying to do little by little each every day. And that seems something that may have hindered a little bit on the literature review. It could have been stronger on both the veterans, the literature that I found on veterans, counseling for veterans, as well as the after school programs. And the funding, I came to know that it's harder, and this is through with Ray, the help of Ray, that seeking funding in private sector is harder because you have to build a relationship. And so that's one of the things that I was looking for Groupon, Google, all these places, not knowing that that would probably be the track that I would have to go through to get those funds. So MacArthur, all these other foundations, I was able to add them in the list, but there was other that necessarily there was no contact. It's like you have to go to them or meet them at a particular place at an event or something and network with them. So that's outside of the scope of what I could do. And reach out for support when I get stuck. And that was one of the things that I tried to do. Is reach out when I didn't know, like for example, with the funding list that I was trying to create for them. It was a list of all these funders that are looking for organizations that they could help. And it was one of the things that I reached out to Ray on time. And that's it. Thank you.
My name is Linda Alexander, and I'm going to talk about my consultation project that I did with Project Hope. Project Hope is located in Harvey, Illinois, and they actually have two types of services that they provide. One is a child care facility, and the other happens to be their Family Advocacy Center, which they got into recently within the last year. And what the Family Advocacy Center does is they provide professional counseling for their clients, positive parenting classes, and anger management classes. And something that's really unique and good for the organization is that their largest client that provided a grant from them is DCFS. And they happen to be housed in the building with DCFS, which is really cool because they can get actually resources and referrals from DCFS. They don't have to go out and look for their clients. All of their client base, thousands of clients, are in the same building and right next door. So that's a really good resource that they have. And before actually going to the events, I guess I should say, when I went into this project, I was really excited about doing a formative evaluation with them, and I was just so excited. But when I actually got in to learn about the organization after meeting with senior leadership, I actually found that the organization really needed a lot of groundwork first. Like I said, the organization actually started less than a year ago, so they hadn't even developed their mission statement yet, whereas they were advertising that they were already out in the community and doing all of this service work. So we basically had to go back to square one. Like I said, I helped them develop a mission statement, which is one of the deliverables, to actually look at a logic model to see what were the activities that the organization had, what were their strengths, and what were their weaknesses. And I found that one of the strengths that they have is that they have a lot of contact and engagement with the community. I really worked with the staff to develop a relationship to go out into the community to a lot of events that they actually hosted and participated in, which is really good for the project. So what I'm going to show you is actually just some pictures from a lot of the events that I went to. And I think I heard Raphael say earlier how this project took a lot of my personal time. I had to take a lot of my PTO time and vacation time. And some of the senior leadership of the organization was really incentive to that. They would tell me to meet them at 2 o'clock. I would get off work at 12. I would drive all the way from downtown to the south suburbs. I would get there and they would reschedule the meeting without calling me on the phone, without saying anything. And they also, at the very beginning of the project, told me that I would mostly work with them on Saturdays from 8 to 12, which is really good. But once after signing all of our contract and paperwork, they were like, oh, we're not coming in on Saturdays. So I was like, what do you mean you're not coming in on Saturdays? And then they said, okay, you can meet us from 6 to 8, during the week. I was like, okay, that's good. I can work with that. The first couple of appointments that I went out to 6 to 8, no staff was there. No one was there. It was very frustrating. And so they said, well, you want to work with us, you'll have to come between the hours of 2 and 4 to 6. And so at first I was upset. Then I said, okay, you have to just back a little. They really have what you want, and it was a really good organization to work with. So like I said, I ended up using a lot of my personal time from work to be able to complete this. And another thing that they did, I don't think they realized what a valuable resource they are in the community. I mean, I went to events where there was governmental officials there, all kind of community partners that we talk about having a relationship with in community psychology. But at these events, they would send the lower level staff because they didn't want to get out of bed and go on Saturdays. And so we would have people coming up to our resource table, but where's the executive director? Where's the CEO? This is what we want to partner with. This is what we want to do. But no one was there. So they really miss out on a lot of valuable opportunities when they do that. So this particular slide is from a youth job fair that was hosted in Dalton, on a Saturday. And this was really good. Like there were vendors from all over. You had PACE that was there. You had a lot of just different kinds of organizations. Like I said, from a community psychology perspective, it was just awesome. At the job fair, this happens to be one of the staff members that we were the only 2 that showed up. And so what I had to do was actually put on a hat to pretend at this event that I was the actual employee of the organization. I had people coming up to me to ask me, what the organization was, what it was about, and that kind of thing. But I looked at it as an opportunity to really learn about how they engage with the community. So this happens to be a job fair that we attended out in Harvey, and it was a really awesome event. You had companies like Nike. I mean, it was just really, really an awesome and fabulous event. And this happens to be some of the vendors that were there, providing resources and information. And again, all of these organizations were looking for senior leadership from Project Hope, and they were nowhere to be found because they didn't want to get out of the bed on this particular Saturday to be there. Another event that I started working with Project Hope probably around November. And so after developing a relationship with them, they invited me to, like I say, they were really free with their information. They invited me to a lot of events. And this happens to be an event that they had, which was Toys at Christmas. And it's really awesome because a lot of orphans and homeless children who don't get toys at Christmas, they actually provide toys for them. They actually provide just a lot of good resources for them at Christmas time, where kids might not normally have Christmas. Another awesome event that I had the chance to attend was a DCF resource event. And this is really awesome because what DCF does is they actually invite vendors and different organizations that would like to work with their clients in on a particular day. Again, these are two staff members who attended the event. And again, there was no senior leadership at this event. And it's just amazing how many vendors were like, where is the senior leadership and where are the actual leadership of this particular organization. And it was a really awesome event that you had a chance to really see how DCFS interacts with the community. And it really gave me an opportunity to see what role community psychology plays as far as collaboration in different things with the community. And this was another event that was sponsored by Robin Kelly, who's the congressman for the 2nd District here in Illinois. And it was really, like I say, top governmental officials were there, so it was really nice. And just to really share with them what I'm doing in my community psychology program here at National Louis. And one of the things I found out, the use of community psychology skills that really applied to this particular project was individual and family well-being. Because the Family Resource Center at Project Hope, because they deal with broken families, domestic violence, their kids who've been abused who come in, they need counseling, the family needs counseling. So you really get a chance to see how the community psychology value of individual and family well-being, how it actually plays out in practice. Another important element of community psychology that I found to be helpful was cross-cultural competence. And I think one of the reasons that I had an issue with some of the senior staff is because a lot of them want to know, why was I there? We're like, why are you here? Are you here for our job and that kind of thing? So you kind of had to step back. I even had one of the lower level staff members to tell me, they really think you're here for a job. So it's like they didn't want to help me. They didn't really want to be a part of it because they thought I was there to actually take their job and do harm to them. So you have to really be prepared on how to deal with different groups of people and their cultural diversity, and just not even from just a cultural perspective, but also from a social and a hierarchical level in the organization. And then another skill that I was able to use is being able to identify and integrate human material resources, including community assets and social capital. One of the things I found out with the organization is that they know nothing about social media. And as you'll see, I'm going to talk about in a minute, they had an event where they actually hosted a job fair at their organization. They didn't do any planning as far as social media. They didn't send out any flyers. They just basically wanted to go by word of mouth. You had a lot of companies who came out. You had UPS, post office, and what have you. They were very, very upset that they wasted their time to come to this event. So like I say, getting back to basics with the organization, they need, for some of the classes and what have you that they're providing, they need social media presence. They need social marketing campaigns to be able to access the target markets that they want to help. So that was one of the things that I worked on, was actually helping them contact and work with South Suburban Community College, which is out in the South suburbs, to be able to have students to come in to actually help them to work on some of their social media skills. And so they're actually utilizing them. So what went well with the project, like I said, collaborating with the staff was really good. There were some staff who were very open and what have you, and being able to attend the community events was good, and then having access to the files. What did not go well? Senior staff was not cooperative, and again, I'm talking about this job fair that they had that didn't go well. And then what were some of the deliverables? Working with the organization to develop a customer satisfaction survey. They provide all these services, but it's key for them to understand their main concern is basically satisfying DCF so that those grants are renewed. But they're not actually tapping into, are these services really helping their clients? are they really, so that's one of the things that they need to develop, because there were some people who left out of some of the events that they hosted that were very angry and upset, and because they didn't feel that they were being helped. So it's key for the organization to be able to meet those individual needs so they can spill over into the community, so that they don't have to keep coming back over and over and over again. Also, I developed a logic model for them, again, identifying their strengths and weaknesses, and also developed a mission statement for them that they're going to be using. What would I do differently? I think I would be more vocal in communication issues that arise, instead of just, trying to smooth it over. I think I would be more vocal in that aspect. And I would emphasize the importance of leadership participation at all levels in the organization. Advice that I would have would be selecting a consulting project early, because I actually had to switch my project because there were a couple that didn't work out. So the sooner you get started, the better. And approach the project from the frame of mind of a community psychologist. And what I mean by that is we're students. And I think when I initially went in, I'm a student, kind of thing. But you really do need to take on that professional persona of a community psychologist. And then build a rapport with staff members at all levels of the organization. And be ready to articulate community psychology principles and values. One of the reasons that this organization decided to work with me, because what is community psychology? Being able to explain that, being able to explain the participatory aspect of community psychology was really good. You have to be tenacious and then flexible. And then patience is a virtue when working with the organizations. And then that's it.